This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome, everyone, to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Ash. Hey, Ash, how's it going?
Very well. Very great. Very good. Thanks, Mike.
Nice. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I think it's going to be a very interesting one. And yeah, so to get us started, if you just want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your life, your journey, anything you want to share.
Mhm. So my name's Ash Perrow, and I live in Sydney, Australia. In 2016, I had a near-death experience, and that near-death experience basically changed everything for me and changed how I see the world and how I see death and what happens after death and what my purpose is while I'm here on the planet. And currently, I work as a coach, so I guide and mentor people in groups and support people to connect to their heart so they can live a life that really inspires themselves and experience the joy of themselves. It's beautiful work. I have family and I love adventuring, love being in nature and experiencing all the joys that nature has to offer.
Nice. Uh, so all of these things, I definitely want to get into more. Um, but I guess we start with the very first thing you mentioned, which was 2016. You said you had a near death experience. If you just want to share that with us, what happened there? And then also, we're going to go into the things that you experienced through that.
Mhm. So in 2015, I had a back injury surfing, and then over the next year and a half, I had two of my discs in my back that deteriorated and were causing excruciating pain. Um, and by the end, I was on opioids. I was couldn't do up my shoelaces on particular days, and so I decided that I needed to go in for operation. Prior to that, I've been trying to heal naturally and doing things like yoga and Pilates and
Oh,
acupuncture and all these different therapies, but it just wasn't healing. And it was in fact it was just getting worse and worse. And so I made the decision to go in for surgery. And during the surgery the surgeons tore a vein and they didn't realize they had torn a vein. And so they stitched me back up. I went back to the ward, and 16 hours later, I collapsed with significant blood loss, like massive blood loss, internal blood loss.
oh,
And it was something that was unexpected, to say the least. And
yeah.
during that process, I was very aware initially that things weren't okay. So I had collapsed, but I still was very conscious of what was happening. I still knew. So a physio had come in to get me up for rehab, and when he got me up, I collapsed. I'd looked down at my leg, and my leg was about twice the size of what it would normally be. It was very, very swollen. And
Mm.
I said to the physio, "My leg's not normally like this." And he was very young, so I'm making assumptions he was just out of university, but he was very young. And he said, "Oh, you'll be right. Up you get." And so I stood up, and that's when I fell back on the bed. He ended up pressing the red alarm button, and so the medical team rushed in, and I was I was very optimistic. Like, I'm an eternal optimist, and
Yeah.
as this was happening, I was thinking, "Oh, I'll be okay." And the medical team rushed in, they put an oxygen mask on me, they started attaching the ECG monitors, and they were saying, "Oh, they're not sticking," and it was because I just bathed in sweat, like a shock reaction in my body had gone into this cold sweat, and so I was very aware that this was happening. And they were describing my body systems as they were talking to me. So they're saying, "Keep your eyes open, Ash. Stay with us, Ash." And I could hear them talking about my blood pressure. They're saying he's not breathing. He doesn't have a pulse. And at that point, one of the surgeons had come into the room, so he must have received an emergency call, and I was very, very aware of what was being said, where everybody was in the room, and at one point, I managed to say, "Call my partner," and I saw somebody rush out of the room, and then I heard them say, "His blood pressure's 52 on 36," which is extraordinarily low, right? There's nothing happening there.
Yeah.
And I thought, "Oh, I'm in real trouble here." Up until that point, I was always like, "It'll be okay, it'll be okay." And then I started to really struggle to maintain consciousness. And I thought, "Oh, this is dying. I'm dying." And I experienced this huge sadness that nobody I loved was in the room. I was, at the end of my life, nobody I loved was with me. And it was an extraordinarily deep sadness. And I remember looking over at the physio, and he was in the left-hand corner, sort of at the foot of my bed, and he just was pale and had so much fear on his face, and I just thought, "Oh my gosh, you think you've killed me?" And that was one of the last thoughts I had before I blacked out, and it was very different to me because I was instantly surprised that I had blacked out, but I was still aware. And so normally, for example, if someone faints, they don't have a memory of being fainted, right? If that
Right.
makes sense, yeah? They're like, they'll
Yeah.
often go, "Oh, what happened?" There's not like this conscious awareness, whereas I had conscious thought. And my experience was I became ripples. And so I was no longer a physical body. I was these ripples that just went out and out and out in all directions, right? So when we say sort of 360, I mean like a 360 sphere of ripples going out, not just on
Yeah.
one plane. And I was very aware that this was me dying. This was something that I had never experienced in my life before. And there was this I didn't have the sadness anymore, so there wasn't like there was emotions like what I'd felt previous, and I was very aware that I wanted to stay. And so I started to say people that I wanted to stay for, and I said I want to
Right.
stay with my partner, and we had a blended family, and I was saying I want to stay for the kids. And I was still going out just in these ripples, and I keep saying this, right? There was no separation. I was the ripples. Wasn't like I could see ripples. No, I was
Right.
ripples. Um, and if we get a little bit, analytical, perhaps it was ripples of energy. Who knows, right? It's there's lots of answers that I don't have to the experience, but it involved me leaving my body, still having conscious thought, and having this deep experience of being myself. Before this experience, I thought, maybe when we die, we become like these enlightened beings, or maybe there is just nothing else. And my
Right.
experience was after blacking out, I was myself. It wasn't, it wasn't this sort of transition into an all knowing, all being figure, which may have happened if I got further, right? But it
Yeah.
was an experience of being myself and like, oh, okay, this is who I am. I am this actual being, and it's a conscious being. And so for all of us, I go, okay, we're all these conscious beings. This is my experience now. We're all these conscious beings walking around in these meat suits. Yeah. And we have these human traits. So we have these types of thinking that we've been taught. We have these words for things that we've been taught. But underneath that is a conscious being, and it transcends the body. We exist after we die. And so these are all sort of a mix of my experiences when I was, we call it on the other side. And so the experience of being on the other side, but also my experiences after my near death experience. And what happened was after I was saying I want to stay, I experienced this warmth come over me, and I said, I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart, which was very different. Before I was saying for everybody else. Yeah.
Really?
And in that moment, I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. Instantly, instantly back into my body, opened my eyes, started breathing. I heard them say, he's breathing, he's got a pulse, and level 11 pain, right? If we put pain on a scale of 1 to 10, it was level 11. And I already knew what level 10 pain was like from my back injury. And this
Right.
was excruciating. And I had it was amazing how quickly I was able to think on the other side. It was like as I said, I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. I had this download of images that was like this instant download of this is what that looks like. And unfortunately, it wasn't a complete roadmap. Right? I still have to work things out as
Yeah.
I go through life. It wasn't like, okay, you just live your life this way and everything's taken care of. It was here's like a little snippet of what it looks like to be yourself. And in that was like be myself, share myself. And so the work is be myself, share myself. And so that's why we're having this conversation today. So, okay, all right. And walking from the planet from the heart, in the few days after that experience, I was very ill. But there was something that in me, I was like, oh, hang on. I thought I was living from my heart. I was being generous and kind to the best of my ability, but I wasn't living from my heart. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had that experience of coming straight back into my body the moment I said I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. And so then there was like these questions. And so our questions drive our existence. Yeah? So, for example, how do I be myself? How do I make enough money to live on and still be happy? All these questions, right? They drive our existence. The question that was planted for me was, how do I live from my heart? How do I walk the planet from my heart? What does that even mean? How did I get that so wrong before? I thought I was doing it right. I thought I was doing it the best I could. And so extraordinary experience, right? And very, very, very ill afterwards. It took me 8 months to get back to full-time work.
Mm.
Um, so it was quite a process. And the impact of that near-death experience, it's with me every day. It's totally changed my life.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that and taking us to that moment with you. Um, there's a couple of things that I find super interesting about it all. So, the first thing is probably quite obvious. I just want to reinforce that. So, is that basically because you said it shapes your life? It definitely defined the rest of your life. And you talked about walking the earth with your heart. But is did that near death experience also did it cause a lot of curiosity? So it sparked a lot of questions because you also said the ripples might have been energy. So I hear a lot of curiosity in there. So it obviously sparked a lot of interest. And did that kind of shape your life as well? That curiosity towards these deeper questions?
Absolutely, because okay, how was that possible? And then the little rabbit hole of going, okay, well, what is consciousness? I experience consciousness, yeah, which
Nice.
actually we're experiencing all the time that we can connect with. But in that near death experience, I was consciousness, and consciousness was me. Ah, so coming back, it's like, oh, what was that? I'm really curious, and how do I live life to my fullest? What was stopping me from living life to the fullest before? And so that curiosity, right, really led me down. Okay, deep personal work. What are emotions? How do I
Mm,
transcend my emotions? What was stopping me? My emotions. Oh, why were my emotions stopping me? Well, because I was rejecting my emotions, and also because they're from the past. Right. So literally my past was in front of me, stopping me. Oh,
mm,
guess what? That means I need to learn what is it to manage emotions? What is it to process the past? So, because if I can put the past behind me, it opens up like this freeway in front of me where I can just travel down this freeway. And eventually I hit the next emotional block. I hit the next barrier of the past in front of me. And then it's okay. I have a lot more skills now. I have a lot more resources and connections. How do I process this? What is it I need to see about myself that is stopping me from moving forward?
yes. I definitely want to follow that path that you just started as well. But before we get into these things, maybe in a little bit more detail because I find them very fascinating. Um, to take it to take it back to the experience, and this is a question that I ask almost everyone on the podcast, but um, I feel like for you it has even more of a relevance because um, I personally, my spiritual belief is that everything in this universe happens for a reason, and that basically um, we can always learn from things that happen to us. And yes, basically, that's how I live my life with that belief, and I'm trying to find strength through that. So, with the experience that you obviously had, and also you describing what you felt or thought before you regained your life, pretty much. Is that a belief you hold as well? Or how would you describe your personal belief? Do you think things happen for a reason?
A great question, Mike. The For me, we're here to experience our own power and rediscover our own power, right? And there's physical power and physical strength and overcoming adversity. But then there's also like this gentle power of the heart. And that when you meet someone that's really connected to their heart, there's something about them. It's like, oh, they seem so comfortable in the world. Yeah.
Mm,
And that can also come from being connected to our physical strength, right? But it's like this protection. Yeah. Whereas with people that are very connected to their heart, there's like this open vulnerability and this authenticity, and you can
mm,
sense they're not blocking. Yeah.
right.
For me, we're here to experience both. And so things happen for a reason. And the reason is to reconnect us back with our own power. And so our soul loves that, right? And we can get a little bit woo woo, but
Mm,
and if we're talking near death experience, right? So what's more woo woo than
yeah.
having some transcendental near death experience? And I'm very blessed that I have a very good analytical mind and a systems mind, and can see connections and things like that. But I also have this spiritual connection, this heart connection. And so for me, it's like, okay, part of that experience, the things that happen, it's to balance both, to balance the heart and the mind. It's to be human, but also be superhuman, supernatural. When I can combine both those, right, life just becomes this really mind blowing experience. And so everything does happen for a reason if I see it that way.
Right.
So the key is how I see it. And if I come back to my near death experience, I can read literature that says, well, you just had a DMT release and that's the body doing
Mhm.
XYZ so that death isn't so traumatic. And eventually the brain would die and you'd be gone. Yeah. So I could go that track. For me, I went, okay, my experience was I had this very interesting experience. And for me, the experience of instantaneously coming back to my body when I expressed I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart, the 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 experience of that instantaneously happening, that happened for a reason. I can go, well, that was just a coincidence. Yeah.
Mm.
Or I can go, actually, that was my experience. What do I make of that experience? How can I use that experience to add value to my life? And so if everything happens for a reason, and I believe that everything happens for a reason, I can take that belief to improve my life. I can take that belief to be more resilient. I can take that belief to be better at letting things go so that the past isn't in front of me. I can also go, well, everything doesn't happen for a reason. It just happens. Or I can go, actually, there's always crap that's in front of me and it's stopping me and it's everybody else's fault. Why does this happen to me? Yeah. And I can be in this place where it's like, okay, this is happening to me. I have all the resources that I need to cope with what's happening. If I stay connected to that vision that came from my heart and my higher guidance when I was really happy, right? So, for talking for people who listen to the podcast, there's perceptions, decisions, beliefs that come from fear. There's perceptions, decisions, experiences that come from not being in fear, from being in trust. When I follow the ones that are in trust, somehow life just seems to get better. Yeah. Somehow I seem to be happier. If I follow the ones that are in fear, it's like it puts me in this little box. And so if everything happens for a reason, and I can believe that those things happening for a reason are for my good and for me to discover things about myself so I can become freer and connect to my own power, then I'm creating my life. I'm not the victim to life. I'm creating my life because those things are happening for a reason. I get to choose which one I believe. Life is better when
Yes,
I choose that things happen for a reason. Uh, you might be able to relate to that, Mike, around which one feels better for you.
de- definitely. And I'm very thankful that you put it the way you just did. Um, because that's very similar to, because again, for me, it is, there is also a very spiritual component to that belief, but that's exactly the way that I always tell it to my friends as well. It's trying to make them see, even if you don't believe in that spiritual aspect of it, it still really helps you. And to your question, yes, definitely. It just makes you feel way more in control. It makes you feel like, yes, I can choose this path. And um, for a long time, I was also, when I was younger, I was saying, yes, I'm a victim of this, I'm a victim of that. And kind of felt momentary comfort in that, because it's like, yeah, you can't really do anything, you're a victim. But then in that same note, I was like, yeah, but I can't do anything. But I want to do something about it. So that's kind of when it switched. And it's like, okay, even if it might objectively not be my fault, let's make it my fault, because then I can do something about it, and then I can change these things. So I really also liked how you said we're here to discover our power, because that really resonated with me. Because yes, I think fundamentally it goes back to the question: Who are we? Who is this I? Who am I really? But um, yeah, let's go down that road a little bit more. Because you talked about skills, and basically, because for people that they are just living their life, right? You're not really maybe thinking too much because yeah, you have a job, you have a family, and things just happen. But how can you actively implement these skills in your life to maybe, even with all these things going on, trying and focusing on the I, the yourself part of it, and not just flowing in your daily life?
Mm. I I'm a father, a coach, I'm an adventurer, I'm a lover, I'm all these roles. Yeah, we are all these roles. And when you're doing a role, it can sometimes be like putting on a costume. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take my human body and act in this way. And so in the middle is you. In the middle is your true state of consciousness, your true self, right? Some people call it true nature. It never goes away. It's always there. We might step out, I might own a dog. So I play the role of being a dog trainer. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
okay, my dog is driving me nuts. I have to teach it how to walk properly because otherwise it just drives me mad. So we take on these roles. But in the middle, if you think about kind of like a spider's web, in the middle is our true self. That's always there. It's always present. It's this form of consciousness. We might do roles. We might play with different ways of being, but we always come back to the center of our true self. And so we can become really attached to things in life. Okay, I want a beautiful home. I want a beautiful car. I want beautiful holidays. Nothing wrong with any of those things. All right. We're in this human experience. So why not have the human experience to the max? However, at some point, we're going to die. At some point, we have to go to this state of letting go. Yeah. And so in our lives, one is like, okay, I want to create this stuff in my life, but also not being so attached to it that it causes us distress if we don't have it or it doesn't look like the way we want it to look like. Because we are, we exist, live or dead, we exist. And so we have this human structure, the personality structure that gets attached to things. And by being attached to things, it helps humanity survive. So coming from a survival state, yeah, where it was really important to be attached to survival, food, water, shelter, clothing, community, those things. And they're still important, right? Because we're still humans. However, now we live in a society where we can thrive. You and I can have this conversation and there's 1,000 kilometers between us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we live in this state where life is extraordinary. We have all these extraordinary resources, but we still have this primal structure in our brain that is trying to survive. And so there's this thing that happens for people where they're transitioning from survival mode to thrival mode. And they want to go into thriving, but they've still got the survival brain structure. I still have the survival brain structure. It pops up at times, right? I'm not I'm not just like this supernatural being. I have human faults. I have an inner critic. I have all these things that come up. But as I work through them, I'm able to expand and live life more fully. So in that, I am. I am. I get to play the role of being a guest on a podcast. It's a role, and I'm bringing this essence of me to the role. And so, a great practice, which is thousands and thousands of years old and been used in many religions, is it's not I am X, I am Y. It's just I am, I am.
Yeah.
And so, if people are, uh, I don't have confidence, or I should have done that better. It's like connecting back to just that phrase, I am, I am. I am, because the truth is you are. Yeah. The truth is, here we are, and there's some sort of vehicle driving these bodies that are having these conversations so that we can experience life fully, experience being present, experiencing ourselves in the moment. So, like going out in nature, right? If we go for a walk in nature, and you were saying before the podcast, right? You went on a hike yesterday, right?
Yeah,
When we're
exactly.
hiking, there is nothing to control. When I'm home, right, the garden needs to look nice, the studio that I'm in right now, right, I want my things nice in the
Mhm.
studio. Oh gosh, yes, last night there was a storm, so this morning, there's some roses just outside my door here, and the roses are
Mm.
trashed, right? It's like the control comes in. Whereas when we go hiking,
Right.
there's nothing to control. It's like everything is a wonder. Oh wow, look at that tree. Oh, look at that rock. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that in that place, that's the I am, the I am. And so we can bring that into our lives where, oh, okay, my roses got trashed last night. Okay, I'm all right with that. I'll just trim them. I'll just prune them and they'll come back. I can be me in that moment. I don't have to go into the frustrated, angry. But if I do go into the frustrated, angry version of me, that's okay too. I'm a human. Right? We all have this emotional landscape that is this constantly changing weather. All right. I can get angry that there was a storm. I can get angry that it's colder today and the wind is blowing. I can get angry that yesterday it was 35 degrees and scorching hot, and then try and reject the weather. But that's only going to cause me suffering. And it's the same with our emotions, right? If I'm rejecting my emotions, I'm causing myself suffering. There's times I'm going to be sad. There's times I'm going to be angry. There's times I'm going to grieve. I'm a human. But the next in the center of the web is me. I am. I am this consciousness that is experiencing the feeling of sadness. Without the human body, I don't have the feeling. It's felt. That's why they're called feelings, because we feel them, right? Heartache, heartbreak. They're physical sensations. Without a body, we don't have those.
Well, I I mean, I don't wanna go too deep into these things, but
Mhm.
also kind of I lied because I kinda want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's there was 2 things, that I really, uh, found interesting in the things you said. N the one just now, let's start with that, because if, again, we say we are the I am, um, what do you think, or maybe there doesn't need to be a reason for it, but obviously in our human body, we were given the ability to feel. So yeah, kind of, what do you think the reason behind that is? Because like you said, if we didn't have the body, there were no feelings. So why, if again we go into maybe we are this energy, maybe we're not, but why are we equipped with a body that makes us feel, that makes us experience a vast majority and variety of emotions?
Mm. Another great question, Mike. Really great question. So after my near death experience, and I was in the hospital, I was in ICU, I could hardly move. I'd been on morphine, and for me, morphine was horrible, right? I
Really?
literally, I couldn't blink without having a nightmare. That it was like, if I just blinked
Mm.
for point 0.3 of a second, I just had these hallucinations that were like 3 minutes. It was
Oh,
excruciating. So anyway, I told them no more morphine. It was just like
mm,
it was just terrifying. And so there was a point where I was laying in the ICU and one of the nurses was there and I was talking to her and I said to her, I'm so grateful to know this level of suffering. So many people go through this suffering like this every day. And I could have lived my whole life without knowing what that level of suffering was like.
Mm.
And that was so different. I'd never said anything like that before in my life. I knew what physical pain was like. I knew what emotional pain was like, but I'd never experienced true gratitude for the feeling. And there was such beauty in the feeling. When I'm rejecting the feeling, I'm disconnected from the beauty of it.
Right.
And another little example, right? Let's say I miss somebody. Let's say somebody I care about is far away or they pass away and I miss them. How
Right.
beautiful to love them so much that I have the feeling of missing someone, the ache.
Mm.
And if I can be with the ache, there's these depths of emotion and beauty that are in there. It's like the ocean, right? I can stay on the surface of the
Yeah.
ocean and just be fearful of what's under, or I can go under and be like, wow, look how the light shines through the water. Wow, look at that shark that just swam past. Look at
Yeah.
those tuna, right? There's all these beautiful experiences if I go in and be present with the emotion. And so our souls are here to feel that. I will never have this face ever again. I will never have this voice ever again, right? I might be conscious awareness, but I won't have these physical characteristics. And when I'm just a soul, I don't have the physical sensations. I don't play guitar. I don't get to hear the
Mm.
sound of the wind in the leaves. Yeah. And so that's the beauty of being human and having feelings and senses. It can be really challenging at times. And if I can come into the practice of being with them and exploring them and letting go and also just being present with them, it opens up such beauty, right? Like we talked about the hiking. I go for a walk,
Yeah.
I can be present with nature. Ah, the beauty makes it all worthwhile. I might be walking up a really steep path, right, to get to the summit. And as I'm walking up the path, I turn around and look around and, wow, look how far I've come. Look how beautiful that is back down
Yes.
there. I might not be at the summit, but I can still appreciate the beauty of that moment. And I might be like, and my legs might be burning, but wow, what beauty, what beauty. And it's the same with the emotions. If we can be present with the grief, and I had to learn that. And there's still times that I reject grief, but the practice, right? It's not a perfection; it's a practice. The practice of being present that helps to improve the skill of being present. And the more that we're present, the more we are our true self, and the more that starts to permeate the whole of our lives.
Yes. So I still have one question in the back of my head that I will come back to, but I also want to get into the being present part because you talked about past, how people often put the past in front of them. I like the way you put that instead of behind, where obviously the past should be. Um, but I also feel like sometimes people also spend too much time, too much mental time in the future as well, thinking about obviously goals are good, but um, I think you know what I mean if I say that. They spend too much mental time in the future. Um, so basically, my question is how does one perfectly live in the present? Because we are humans, we have egos, we have people we care about, we have things we care about, and we have a mind that has thoughts, and those thoughts basically are ever present. So yes, how can we fully be in that present and fully maybe sometimes we are almost at the summit and we just look up and be like, oh, it's still 10 meters to go instead of, oh, we already went 900. You know, how do we do these things in everyday life?
So a question for you, if that's okay, right?
Of
Just
course.
to help listeners to clarify for themselves too. What's harder, being present or not being present?
Well, I mean, I would say it's harder to be present because I can
Mm,
always choose not to be present. Like
mm,
I could just tune out right this second, and I feel like that might be easier.
yeah. And so, what happens to our lives if we just keep tuning out and not being present? Is our life easier or harder?
It will definitely become harder that second that we open our eyes pretty much and see where life is at.
Yeah. So, the truth is, it's easier to be present. Being present is the path of least resistance. Yeah. It's easier for me to be present than go scroll on my phone for 2 hours.
Mm,
Yeah. Where I be present, actually, I have these emotions. Okay. And I become one with my emotions. I become like very aware and present. And a little trick in being present is self compassion. I'm a human being. You're a human being. We all have emotions and we all have a judge for having emotions, right? We all have this part that says you should be happy. Why? Because that's how we were trained. We were trained in our upbringing, we were trained in school
mm,
that you shouldn't be unhappy. You should be happy. So anything away from happy, we shouldn't be there, right?
right.
And that creates disconnection. That creates a lack of presence. Whereas it's like, oh, okay, I'm experiencing anger right now. Okay, I can feel it in my throat. Can feel like my eyebrows tilt down, and I want to swear at people. I want to honk the horn in the
Mm,
car. Okay, I can be compassionate with myself for being frustrated, feeling stuck in traffic, or for being late. Right? These are all these conditions. Babies weren't born being worried about being late. Adults, we have that worry, most of us. Yeah.
yeah.
We learned that. Can we have compassion for ourselves that we learned that? And then the frustration that comes won't be so overbearing with that self compassion. So, okay, my human self is just angry right now. Okay. Oh, what do I need? What do I need to nurture that part of me that's angry? Maybe it's a breath, a sigh. Maybe it's to change the music from heavy metal to something gentler. Yeah. Maybe it's just to go, okay, I just have to accept I'm stuck in traffic right now. And that creates the presence. Okay. Okay. Here I am. Here I am. I am. I am. I am. I am all things. Yeah. Right?
Right.
Mm. Did that answer?
Yes, uh, it definitely did, and it also made it like very. Uh, I don't know. It was very interesting to really see how embracing whatever emotion it is ultimately helps. Because to be fair, I never thought about it that way. For me personally, when I found meditation, that really helped me to think about things very clearly and very logical, but embracing emotions like you just explained and looking at it like that is something that, yeah, I don't think I've ever yet come to do in that certain aspect of acknowledging, oh, there is this anger. What might I need or my body need? So yeah, that was actually really uh really cool to hear and see how that at the end helps you become more present.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, little toddlers don't judge themselves for being angry. And then within seconds, they're giggling, laughing, running
Mm,
around happy. Right? Humans, we get angry and then adults, we get angry and then we judge ourselves for being angry. That's what makes it stick.
yeah,
And then we're angry at ourselves for having experienced anger. And if we were actually just present with the anger, not judging ourselves, compassionate with ourselves, the anger would just go. So, like you mentioned around meditation, it's a practice. It's not a perfection. I'm not present all the time. In fact, hopefully, I'd be happy if I was present half the time.
mm,
Like, I still have this brain and I still have these
yeah,
desires and things that I want and ways that I think the world should and shouldn't be. There's still suffering, but the practice of letting things go, the practice of self compassion and presence and awareness and meditation, it all helps. It's not about being perfectly present all the time. And even if I try and do that, I create expectation on myself, which takes away the presence.
yeah, yeah. It's a whole living basically is kind
Yeah.
of a paradox if we think about it like that. But
It it is,
um,
and, meditation is a practice because when you do it, you're practicing being connected to yourself, being breath or letting things go or just letting consciousness expand, whatever it is that the meditation practice is, or focusing, right? And the practice of that means that when you need those aspects, those skills, they kick in. And so a personal example was I'd been meditating for about 3 years, felt like I was wasting my time. My head was still really busy. This was about 15 years ago. And at that time, I was working in Australia. We call them special schools, so children with disabilities, high medical needs, and things like that. And there was a medical emergency, and one of the children needed an ambulance very, very quickly, or she was going to die. And everybody was there was 3 other staff in the room that were highly stressed, and I noticed that I was connected to my breath, and I was calm. I was like, "Okay, well, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's take care of this." And I was super calm,
right,
and I thought, "Ah, the meditation works." That's what the meditation was for, was so that at those times where stress might overtake and make bad decisions and things like that, I was calm. I was connected to myself. I was able to make better decisions because of the practice of meditation. That's what it's practicing for.
yeah, that definitely is something I totally agree with. You basically see these effects in hindsight.
Mm,
Well, obviously, after you meditate, or for me personally, I always feel very good just coming out of the meditation. But then, yeah, it's like, what did it really bring to my life? But then it is those kind of experiences where, in hindsight, you're like, oh, 5 years ago, maybe I would have reacted and this in such way. And then, but today I react like this.
yeah. And
Um,
that's the power. That's a power place, right? What you just said then, that's an inner power thing where you go, 5 years ago, I would have reacted like that. But I noticed that I react like this, right? And so when we have goals, it's okay to have goals, right? It's okay to have a vision of where we want to go. The thing is that a lot of people go into judging themselves for not having the goal yet, right? And so which diminishes our energy, diminishes our motivation. And the trick is to go, actually, how far have I come? What did I do yesterday? Right. And we're playing with the human personality structure there. Yeah, so there's the soul, the desire to experience life in its fullest and try all these new things. That's the soul going, hey, let's try this, let's do this, let's play with this. And then there's the humanness that's like, okay, we must achieve this, otherwise there's something wrong with us. But you
mm,
can hack that by going like what you just said. Oh, 5 years ago, I would have reacted this way. Look how far I've come. And you can, it's always this thing that can you go back and see how far you've come and acknowledge that? And then you're going to have this greater sense of self worth, this greater motivation to keep moving towards the goals. So for me, that's how goals work is that it's a vision, but I'm not attached. And I can spend the time working towards my goals and being present as I'm doing that and enjoy the time of being present, doing work. But the goals don't matter. It's the time that I spend that matters. The goals will naturally come if I spend the time.
I, I feel like that's a great thing to highlight as well. Is um, obviously it might depend on the goal, but and like maybe if it's a goal inside of a business, it is like we have to sell this amount of whatever products it is. It's a very That's a very definite goal, and probably anything but that goal is failure. But most goals in life are not really like um are not definitive like that. So if it is, I want to be good at something. It is, I want to have a purpose in this and that way. See, like an important thing in most goals is, like you've said, the journey. It's because goals, you also shouldn't have a goal that you don't enjoy. So it should be something that you do every day, every week, and you really enjoy the process of it. You enjoy doing the actual thing rather than, oh, now I've sold 10, whatever. I keep getting stuck on that sold
Mhm. Yeah, which is great.
example, but it's like, yeah, you need to really embrace the journey rather than the actual definitive goal, in my opinion.
Mm. It's an interesting one because what's wrong with me if I'm not embracing the journey? I should embrace the journey, right? When I say
Yeah,
should, that creates an expectation on myself. And if I don't meet that expectation, what's wrong with me? I
right.
should achieve the goal. Yeah. Whereas if I take the focus away from the goal and put it into time and attention, right? So one, there's outcome goals, process goals. In process goals, I'm focusing on putting in the time and the attention, not the outcome. When I focus on, oh, okay, let's say, let's say I want to get super healthy, right? Let's say, okay, I'm sick of being 10 kilograms overweight. I want to lose the 10 kilos. If I simply find the right exercise program, do the right exercise program for my body, and keep doing that consistently, I will get the result. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if I focus on, well, I turned up today and I did my 30 minutes of exercise, great. Then I get dopamine. Dopamine creates more motivation. If I
mm,
don't turn up, I don't get the dopamine. Yeah. Now, if I focus on losing the 10 kilos and go, okay, I've got to get to the 10 kilos, I will only get dopamine when I get the 10 kilos. Yeah.
yeah,
Because that's how I'm setting up my perception is impacting how my brain releases dopamine. So it's a better
right.
practice to focus on the process. Okay, I turned up, I did the work, dopamine. Yeah. The outcome will come because I'm turning up. So if I focus on turning up, I'll get dopamine, which creates more motivation. If I focus on the must lose the 10 kilograms, I create this pressure, which takes me out of presence, right? And I might not enjoy the exercise, but I might want to live longer. Yeah. So I really focused on
Yeah,
losing that 10 kilos. But if I perceive I'm not losing weight, noradrenaline is going to build up in my brain, and noradrenaline makes us want to quit. So if we perceive we're not moving forward, you get noradrenaline, makes you want to quit. If you perceive you are moving forward, so for example, getting the right number of podcast listeners, yeah, if
Mm,
that's a goal, right? So, okay, well, I want to get to 1,000 listeners or 10,000 or 100,000. Great to have the vision. It comes from the process. So focus on that you did the process. Then you get the dopamine. Oh, I turned up, I did that interview, I was prepared, I released it. Great. Dopamine.
yeah.
Oh, I only got however many views. Noradrenaline. You should quit. You should quit. You should quit. Yeah. So it's often just our focus that is impacting those chemicals. So with our perception and we're focusing on the process, we release different chemicals. And so you're getting dopamine hits all the way through. And that's one of the other things around breaking everything into little steps. Dopamine, 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 dopamine,
Right.
right? Oh, I need to lose 100 grams, 50 grams. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. I just need to take the next step. Dopamine. I need to lose 10 kilos. Guess what? You're going to wait till you hit the 10-kilo mark until you get dopamine, and then it's going to be gone. There's going to be a sense of dissatisfaction. And so sometimes we have to keep doing things that we dislike and aren't comfortable to get the goal. But it's the small steps and managing dopamine because it's part of our human framework.
That yeah. I feel like definitely makes sense, but um, it's just yeah. I don't know if it's that common for people to go, oh, I want to lose 100 grams. Um,
Mm.
that's kind of the like you said, that's the human mind, right? Because we want it all. You know, we want to strive for we want 1 million followers, not a
Yeah.
hundred. And
Mm.
um, so yeah, it's kind of. But then again, it also totally makes sense if I lose 100 grams and I lose another and I lose another. So why is it sometimes more difficult to be content with these small goals consistently rather than one big goal that
Yeah.
we're striving for?
Because that's how we were taught.
Mm.
Yeah. We were taught it wasn't good enough to get a B at school in an exam. You had to get an A plus. And it was only when you
Right.
got an A plus that you were good enough. And so we strive to get an A plus. We don't get an A plus, and then we internalize that there's something wrong with us because we should be able to get an A plus. And so that was taught. That was taught by family and taught by school. Instead of the report cards, and I was a school teacher for 22 years. Report
Yeah.
cards should be based on progress, not outcome, right? So if you
Mm.
have someone coming in and they're a D student and they make it to a B, wow,
Right.
give them the
Yeah.
student of the year, right?
Right.
Whereas a student of the year is going to the A plus kid who was already getting A pluses.
Mm.
Yeah. And if we reward progress, we reward commitment, not necessarily the highest level, right? Because if you keep rewarding the progress, the amount of progress that they make, the amount of effort that they put in, they're going to more likely get to the higher levels. Yeah, imagine all those kids and that are sitting there in assemblies and things like that, and they're seeing that these kids year after year get the best student awards. Yet there's kids that have moved from an E to a C or a D to a B plus or even a D to an A. That's extraordinary.
Yes. Yeah. That's I hope a lot of people listen to this because I
Uh-huh.
feel like that's in life. That's where a lot of these people, like you said, the D to B. student then gets discouraged because they're like, I did all this effort. And not only students, but in life in general, I did all this and I came this far. And then, oh, it's the person that had the A plus last year,
It
for whatever it is in life. And, uh, but yeah, I guess, that's just how life is at the moment. And if we just know with ourselves the progress we make, that's already a big step as well. We don't need other people to, I mean, obviously, I would also be lying if I said it wouldn't be nice, but we don't
mm,
need other people to acknowledge it. We know it, we acknowledge it, so that's a big part of it too.
yeah, and that's where everything starts. Yeah. It's like, I sent an email out today to my email community, and it's we don't have to do big things. We just have to be present, right? We just have to be ourselves and grow, and that itself lights a candle, and one candle can light infinite number of other candles. And that's the true gift, is just being present and being loving and kind to ourselves and to others. And that, as we go through life being that way, that creates opportunity because you're just being your true self,
Mm.
right? You are the magnet. You are abundance. Most people think abundance comes from outside themselves. No, 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 no. It comes to you because you are abundance, right? If you ever look at a little baby, you hold a baby in your arms, it's like, whoa, it's a magical experience. It's because the baby is abundance. People want to take care of babies, support babies, help them thrive because they are abundance. And it's the same as adults. It's just that we've forgotten. We have this lens on that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough, that we're not abundance anymore. Whereas it's the opposite. When we're in our true nature, people do want to help us. People do want to thrive, want you to thrive. Opportunities do come.
Yes. Um, well, Ash, I feel like I could do this for hours more,
Mm.
but I also feel like this is a beautiful place to uh, call an end to it. Nice messages throughout, nice message right here at the end. Um, so, if you just want to tell us, for the people that listened and that found this as inspirational and interesting as I did, where can we find out more about you, more about the stuff you put out? Where's your online presence?
Thanks, Mike. So if people resonate with these perspectives and want to connect to their heart, want to be in the world in a different way, want to move through things. There's things like TikTok is my main platform. By the time the podcast comes out, TikTok might not exist in the United States anymore. We'll see what happens there. There's a TikTok ban being
Right.
planned, so we'll see. But I have about 400 videos on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, my website, ashperrow.com. And I also run fortnightly workshops in a group called the Inspired Growth Pod. And I'll
Of
share that link with you, Mike, if you don't mind just popping that in the show notes.
course.
And people can go through the show notes and just have exploration there. There's lots of free resources like an inner critic quiz to see which parts of your personality are holding you back from doing things that you want to do. Yep, and many, many other things on that link. So, yeah, if people resonate, they're welcome to come and benefit from those things.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely put all those links in the description so y'all can easily follow them and get to all these resources. Um, so yeah, Ash, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, sharing your expertise, your insights, your experiences. Um, it was a really fun conversation. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. So enjoy the rest of your day and bye,
Mm.
everyone.